Hello, listeners on Healthy Issues podcast. Today, we are going to be discussing tetanus. Be there and listen to what our guests will be telling us about tetanus. You are with me, Liveness Choga, the producer and the editor of this program. But also, I'm with our usual guest, Mr. Josam. Welcome, Mr. Josam.
Thank you very much for welcoming to this program about tetanus.
Yes. Now, to begin with, Mr. Josam, can you tell us the overview of tetanus?
Tetanus, by its nature, for sure, is a condition. It's one of the medical conditions which is very dangerous and is very deadly. If we delay, we end up losing the individual having infected with tetanus. Tetanus by its nature is caused by bacteria, and this bacteria has got its name, and its name is Clostridium tetani. Most of the time, Clostridium tetani, when it enters in the body of the individual, it might present with three markers like muscle stiffness, spasmness, and rigidity. These are medical terms which we can put them into simple terms. In a simple term, what you can say about stiffness, spasmness, and rigidity is to be on the self-centered. There is no movement when the episode has come. Less more like spasms or muscle cramp has attacked you. You don't move in your leg. That's how we can describe all those kind of three markers. However, by overview of it, epidemiologically, WHO aimed at eliminating it by 2025. However, still other countries, because of lack of vaccination and medical efforts and medical scenarios to deal with it, is becoming very difficult. There have been notable outbreaks, especially in Haiti, after the earthquake outbreak. That was in 2010. Again in 2014 to 2015, South Sudan outbreak, it has risen again. And 2017-2018, the Rhodesia refugee crisis resulted into again the outbreak of tetanus. So this one can be endemic. That means it has attacked a community or a country. It can be pandemic when it has attacked the whole world, like the way it happened with COVID-19. However, the sources that we are using now is from WHO, Center for Disease Control, and the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Disease, as well as Tetanus Information, VIS. Epidemiology data, it shows that WHO, it has been experienced 215,000 cases per every 12 months, that means annually, and 56,000 deaths annually as well. In endemic countries, it has got 100 countries that has experienced this condition. Outbreak is often linked to conflict or disasters. As I said, in the Haiti where we had the earthquakes. However, this condition, as I said, it is most of the time caused by the bacteria. That's what I can say about the overview of tetanus. Sure.
Mr. Josam, what are the clinical presentation of tetanus?
Tetanus, as I said, by being bacterial infection, we always put the three markers as is clinical presentation, as I said, stiffness, spasm, and rigidity. However, not all these things can happen to one individual. Number one clinical presentation marker is muscle stiffness and rigidity, as I said already. The muscles become rigid. So rigidity, it shall imply that the muscles will be on the self-centered. It won't move at any cost. There's no or we can say range of motion of the body, body parts get reduced. Muscle spasmness. Muscle spasmness, you feel like there's a jerking of the muscles. Yes. Now, number 3 is a low jock. Low jock, in a medical term, we saw trismus. Trismus, these are the muscles that we call them stenomandibular muscles. Muscles of the mouth, upper mouth, and lower mouth. They get locked. You cannot open your mouth when the episode of tetanus has attacked you. That's what we call low jaw. Then difficulty swallowing. Since your jaws has been locked, you cannot swallow anymore. And that is a very fact. Abdominal cramps. Why abdominal cramps? Because of the stiffness and rigidity, even spasmness of the muscles. Fever, that's a response because in a bacterial infection, we always exhibit fever because the immunity is fighting against the infection. In this case, we are calling the one which is causing this one infection, Clostridium tetani. Heart problem because of the muscles will not have enough flexibility, resulting into cramping the heart muscles, and the ventricular system is get affected, and that will result into heart problems, and breathing is a bit compromised. Yes, those are some of the clinical presentations as far as tetanus is concerned, and it's very, very deadly infection. If you delay it, there is nothing you can expect than death.
All right. So this tetanus, are there any types, or it's just tetanus?
Tetanus by its own, medical people has been giving it, or has generated it to be into 3 or 4 types of tetanuses. So number 1 is generalized tetanus, which is the most common. This generalized tetanus, you always exhibit the clinical presentation of neck stiffness, rigidity, and spasmness. Those are the key markers that we always categorize tetanus into generalized tetanus. Number 2 types of tetanus is localized tetanus. Localized tetanus is a one which we describe it as mild one, and is localized symptoms. In this case, you can see or you can figure it from yourself that the mild one is a bit localized. It can just be some small clinical presentation like fever and sweating, and even sometimes difficulty swallowing, or which difficult swallowing can be caused by different kind of conditions. So those kind of markers will give us to categorize tetanus as localized tetanus, which is mild and it has got mild and localized symptom, as I've put it already. Another types of tetanus is neonatal tetanus. Neonatal tetanus, most of the time we see it in the newborns. Newborn shall mean 0 up to a week, up to some months, or some 4 weeks plus. Those what we call a neonatal tetanus. Neonatal tetanus, most of the time we expect the newborn baby to exhibit some tetany, or we expect to have some spasmness of the muscles. The baby might exhibit some stiffness of the neck and the muscles, and even his or her muscles might be rigid enough. And the baby cries a lot, and we expect again to have some fevers, which will be in line with the presence of bacteria in the body of the baby. So this neonatal tetanus is very dangerous. Most of the time, it results from the situation whereby the mother has not been given what we call TTV, tetanus toxoid vaccine. In addition to that, we have got another cephalic tetanus. Cephalic tetanus is very, very, very rare. It just affects the cranial nerve. The cranial nerve is the nerve that controls the mechanism of what we call the brain, which most of the time we're talking about the cerebellum, and the medulla oblongata. And if all these cranial nerves have been incapacitated or been affected, don't expect the baby to survive, because the brain is the center for other organs to be surviving, because it controls everything as far as a human being is concerned. So cephalic tetanus, of course, is very rare, but where it has affected, where it has affected the individual, most of the affected area is cranial nerves. Those are the 4 types of tetanus: generalized tetanus, localized tetanus, neonatal tetanus, as well as cephalic tetanus.
All right. It seems that this is really a deadly disease. Now, what are the transmission of this disease? Can it be transmitted to someone by contact? Can you tell us what exactly can this disease be transmitted?
This condition is a very, very, very difficult to understand, because Clostridium tetani, the bacteria that causes this condition, most of the time it likes to stay in the dead areas, very dead areas. Most of the time, it can be transmitted by contaminated wounds. Contaminated wounds mean the wounds that are very, very contaminated. We cannot cure them. We need to be debridement, or the organ should be cut off. So in those kind of wounds, when you fail to handle this contamination transmission area, much more focused on the medical practitioners. If you fail to handle that wound aseptically, it can affect you, because Clostridium tetani likes to stay in those kind of things. So you can easily transmit or be affected by those kind of contaminated wounds. If you pierced yourself using what we call the forceps, or the Alice forceps, or any surgical material that you are using to take care of those kind of wounds. Number 2 transmission is soil or fecal contaminations. Fecal contamination, it shall entail that in that fecal contamination there should be what we call the spores, and those spores must be of the species of Clostridium tetani. This bacteria, it will always liberate what we call spores, and it's those spores that might result into nothing, that it will result is the one that you will inhale in one or another, or just get in contact with them, and you end up catching this kind of infection. Where there is a soil, in a soil, as I said already, that this bacteria likes to stay much in the dirty area. If it is stay in the dirty area and the soil is one of it, the chances that you can catch this tetanus in the soil is very high. This shall mean that we have to advise our toddlers or kids not to be so much more fondling with or fiddling with soils, because those soils, they are harbors of Clostridium spores. So if they come in contact with those spores, where the baby or the guy has got a cut, if that spore entered through the cut, expect nothing but has carried the Clostridium